And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much that you decided to come back for more. Folks, I don't blame you. That was a brilliant decision because we have a lot more for you. Now, why do we have so much more for you? Because this is the podcast. It's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And our guest today is a podcaster. You cracked the code. Absolutely. Folks, you really are brilliant. Way to go. And I'm glad that you're here. This is the place where we raise each other up. And this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So let's get sailing and bring in our guest today. He is the founder of the Prime Performance Coaching Program. He is also the host of the hit podcast Surviving the Side Hustle. Please welcome Rob Tracz to our show. Rob, how you doing, brother?
Roy, man, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to diving into our conversation.
Thank you, man. I'm glad that you're here too. I can't wait to dive into this stuff myself and hear all about it. Before we get into that, though, why don't you just kind of give our audience an idea? Who is Rob Tracz? What are you about? And how'd you get into all this in the first place, brother?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for the introduction. I feel like this is an excellent way to kind of sum me up. And through the years, I've kind of wore a lot of different hats. And now, most days of the week, I see myself wearing the Prime Performance Coaching hat and still a little bit of the background of strength and conditioning. So occasionally, I'm out there in the gym with clients and friends, and then podcasting and supplement line and speaking career and a lot of things from over the years that have kind of brought me to who I am now. And I feel like I'm always kind of evolving, so the hats are always changing, and it's exciting. My background, like I said, is in strength and conditioning. Sports became the gateway drug, I guess, for personal development for myself. And as a young child that was struggling to make friends and moving around a lot of different school districts, sports became the way where I started to take care of myself. I began accepting challenges and pushing myself, building confidence, and that led to me getting a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, and which then bled into more playing time and eventually more friends. And more friends meant more birthday parties I got to go to. And if I wanted to go to those birthday parties, my mom made sure my grades were good. So it was a lot about learning how to plan and setting goals and such, even at a young age. And really through school and through different sports teams, my personal development journey continued to grow and evolve. And through grad school and such, it landed me in a position at a private strength and conditioning facility. Roy, are you familiar with like the strength and conditioning industry by any chance?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I have two
Okay,
boys who are bigger than I am and lecture me every day. So,
nice.
yeah.
So as a coach, you might know that you typically the coach goes one of two routes. You either try to go collegiate or professional setting with the dreams of hopefully working with some great teams on TV, or you go the more entrepreneurial route and you kind of go into the private sector where you can either open a gym or work in a private gym. And that's the route that I took. And it was exciting for me because although I worked for another facility, I was allowed to totally control of my own schedule. I can work as many hours as I want. I could fill it. I could to basically cover sales myself and marketing for myself. And it was really exciting. And that taste of entrepreneurship and business and that success on paper really was addicting to me. So I quickly scaled my book of business up to the point where I was training 16, 17 people per day. So like starting sometimes at like
Wow.
4 o'clock in the morning and not even finishing until like almost 10 p.m. And I did that for 7 days a week for about 3 years. Like talking about Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgiving, I worked everything.
Wow.
And in that time period, I wore that like a badge of honor where my friends would ask me to come hang out. No, I'm too busy. Relationship with my girlfriend fell apart because I couldn't have any time for her. And not making it even home for the holidays, my family stopped checking in on me because they were like, oh, he's just working, just working. And I thought that was successful. And I thought that was what I wanted to be doing until my dad got sick with pancreatic cancer. It came on super, super fast. He,
Wow.
I still have the voicemail where he called me at the beginning of June saying that there's something serious he had to talk to me about, and he ended up passing away 6 weeks after that. And like you would assume that would be where I had the wake up call because I took off the day he had passed and I took off for his funeral. So two days in that 3 year period, but I just jumped right back into it. I started grinding again, and that full schedule that I had then became a distraction from the life that I was avoiding that I had accidentally created. And it wasn't until another 2 years later, after my dad had passed, when I was denied that distraction. It was a holiday weekend, and a lot of people were away, and I couldn't fill my schedule. So I was sitting alone in my apartment on a Friday night, just thinking like, what do normal people do on Friday nights? And I was like, oh, well, I used to go out with friends. I used to hang out with family. I used to do all these things, but nobody was around for me to call and hang out with. So I started to think about like, how did I get here? And what do I need to do to change? And I always knew there was something a little bit more to my life than just teaching squats and deadlift patterns. So that's when I began the journey of creating Prime Performance. And I started going down this rabbit hole on figuring out what's made me successful over the years, leading back to sports and goal setting, communication, and social influence, and things like this. And eventually I built in all these frameworks and these principles for my coaching. And eventually was born Prime Performance Coaching. And that's what I'm doing now. I feel super fulfilled. I'm traveling around teaching workshops, speaking at conferences, and really helping other entrepreneurs, specifically solopreneurs or side hustlers, really build that momentum so that they can continue to grow and build the lives that they're set out to originally create, instead of getting trapped in what I call robot mode and living the life that has just kind of fallen into your lap.
Yeah. Listen, man, before we even go any further, I'm sorry for your loss. That just absolutely brutal. Those are two words you never want to hear at all. And so I know how serious that is. And
Appreciate
I've
that.
lost
Thank you.
lost loved ones to cancer too, and it's just never gets any easier. Um, the and I don't blame you for throwing yourself into work. That's how we cope, especially as men. That's what we do. We just throw ourselves into it and go, look, I'm not going to sit here and cry. I'm going back to work and I'm going to process through it. Um, and usually it's especially with our dads, what they would have wanted. So I get it completely. Out of your grief and all that work and everything else, this is where your mission kind of comes from. Then it sounds like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really reflecting on him because he life was cut short essentially, and he never really got to get to those stages or enjoying the things that he wanted to because he was constantly still working, and he kept working because he was trying to set up or at least be available for me and my sister, and he wanted to make sure that things were comfortable for us. And unfortunately, due to his employment contract, where he didn't officially make it to his retirement. He ended up passing away a few days before his like official retirement, that
man,
his like 30-year pension and everything else was just went back to the company, and there's nothing that we could do about it. So essentially all that work he had put in for us was essentially for nothing. And
yeah,
that's when I was like, okay, I need to make sure that other individuals aren't just wasting their lives, like kind of like how I was, and I was falling into that trap. And I want to make sure that other individuals who are courageous enough and brave enough to kind of start the side hustle or move it into a full hustle. And now they're trying to build this thing. I don't want them to fall into that trap where they sacrifice themselves in order for something else to grow. I want them to for them to know that you can still enjoy the journey and still enjoy life at the same time.
yeah. It's a great mission. It really is, and a lot more of us need to pay attention to that. You were, living the life of an entrepreneur. You were out there, hitting it, doing, 17 appointments a day. I mean, that's dawn till dusk, man. That's
Yeah.
before dawn till after dusk. And I've kind of been there in a lot of different ways, so I get it. When you become an entrepreneur, all of a sudden your income's completely up to you. So, scaling back and taking it easy is not really part of the equation. But by the same token, you get that life and you're like, hey, here I am. I have this life now and I'm free. But then you're more of a slave to what you have to do in order to make it because you're the whole product. So if you don't show up, how do you get paid? How do you make that transition? How did you go about making that transition from where you were, putting in those crazy days and all that time and, putting your entire life energy into it to where you are now, which is, more balanced and, different pillars of life, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think it's really different for every individual with what they've got going on. But specifically for me, I thought I was living that entrepreneurial world. I thought I was growing a business and doing all this and that. But what I was really doing is I was just growing a successful job. Because as I continued to grow and build up, I was still limited with what I was being able to do. I wasn't able to clone myself, or I couldn't figure out how to do the different things to continue to scale. And I think it's important um, because to know at least the difference between growth and scaling. I heard one of my mentors talking about this recently, and they had emphasized that growth is great, but typically with growth, your revenue increases and you're making more money, but also your expenses increase or your time decreases, and that gap between your income and your expenses or your time doesn't ever increase. So they grow together. And whereas scaling, you're increasing that difference. So then you're either buying back more time or your expenses are starting to shrink. So then you can hire more people to then buy more time. And I think for me, that was powerful to learn because then I had to realize like, okay, how do I get myself away from this? How do I get this into an actual business so that it can continue to grow and scale? And back in the day when I was in that robot mode grinding, I began to kind of think about that. I started to create some online coaching. That's where the supplement line started. I was like, okay, well, I could start to make money just by having a storefront or just having like an online store and make some income. So that'll buy back a couple sessions or whatever, but it was too difficult for me at the time, and this was almost 10 years ago now, so it was online coaching and online realm wasn't quite as developed yet. So it was a process, and it still is, looking for new ways to kind of grow and make sure that the scaling is still the main priority.
Nice, nice. And it makes sense. Tell me real quick about the supplement business aspect to what you're doing. What do you have out there, and what does it do? What does it do?
Yeah, so originally was working with a lot of high school athletes and aspiring D1 athletes, a couple retired professional athletes in that realm where I was at. So I really wanted to create products that were clean and safe for athletes. And at the time, it was, all right, how do I figure this out? Where do I do this? And again, this was almost 10, almost 15 years ago, and I'm trying to research it and I'm looking up different manufacturers, calling people, seeing where they're getting their ingredients and things like that. And everything was all set and I was excited. And then all of a sudden I realized that you have to have a minimum order quantity. So like you have to buy in bulk basically. If they You got to make it willing or worth it for the manufacturer to produce a bunch of bottles. So I was like, okay, well, let me save up a little extra cash for this. And I'm a big vanilla guy, so I started with vanilla protein. I'm like, all right, I use it all the time. People are constantly asking me what kind of products to use. So I was like, let me go with vanilla protein first. Apparently, not as many people like vanilla as they like chocolate, so it was a little slow to get started. But then once sales were up enough and I was enough to make the minimum order for the chocolate protein, things started to go a little bit faster. And then I created a multivitamin, creatine, fish oil, sleep support. I got greens. I've got vitamin D. So I'm up to 32 products, I think it is.
Wow.
Um, so it's been an adventure. That's kind of been a pretty sweet little journey. I wish I had more time to dedicate to that, but for like marketing and such. But I think that's the next project going into next year is to
Mhm.
come back and rebrand some of that and kind of take that to the next level.
Nice. Now I know that your bigger item is your prime performance coaching program. That's your main thing, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Tell me about that. How'd that happen? Where'd you get the idea for it? What's it based on? Go for it.
Yeah, so as I kind of hinted earlier, that journey began after that holiday weekend, and I was like, okay, I need to do something else. And I was doing some online fitness and strength and conditioning and some nutrition coaching, but it was always like a struggle because I'm like, there's more to this, and there's something else I need to be kind of teaching. So that's when I revisited seeing like, okay, well, what's made me successful in my life? Like when I was a younger kid, it was sports, and then I realized that I needed to rise to the challenge of going to football practice and getting in better shape and doing these things. So I knew that there was a component of building resilience and accepting challenges and building confidence was a thing. And then I remembered that from sports, in order to get to the next level, I needed to start paying attention to how I was fueling my body. So I was looking at, okay, nutrition and like what I'm having in my diet. But then I realized in entrepreneurship and regular everyday life, it's more than just your dietary nutrition. It's also your digital nutrition. So like, what's the content that I'm consuming? Am I binging Netflix or am I listening to great podcasts like this that's inspiring and motivating and educating? And how do I balance that? How do I align that with the seasons that I'm in for different projects and such? And then just like the birthday parties, it was about goal setting, making sure that you get your homework done. And now in life, that's making sure that I get my tasks done that I need to get done. So planning things out and having goals and having a vision. And then from there, it's like, how do you optimize that? So then looking at your rules and your routines and where can you increase efficiency and and make yourself more productive and really level up your systems and from there it's like okay, now I've got a pretty decent system and that's good. I can go pretty far with what I'm working with, but that's only so far. And no, like I know our society, we love the lone wolf and the hustle culture and grind, 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 grind. But if you want to really do some great things in life, you got to surround yourself with some great people. So that's where the social component comes in and being able to like influence socially and ethically and how to create. And that comes in with sales and marketing and a bunch of things like that. And then the final aspect is really all around creating more opportunity and going from grad school into the entrepreneurship and then transitioning. So through my life, I kind of looked at all those different things I just discussed and realized that those are the principles that I essentially live my life by. And then those became the principles for prime performance, all about resilience, intentionality, clarity, efficiency, social, and then opportunity. And that's what I kind of lean into and teach and share different stories and experiences and created these frameworks to help other solopreneurs. And that's where I feel most fulfilled. I get super excited, and that's my bread and butter, I'd say now.
Nice, nice. It sounds honestly, it all sounds really incredible. Like you've really put a lot into it. The Let's talk about your core principles.
Sure.
Now, if I have these right, and correct me if I'm wrong, resilience, intentionality, clarity, optimization, networking, and luck creation. Do I have them right?
Essentially, yeah. So the last one there, that luck creation, it's all about the opportunity. And I
Okay.
lean into that, the idea of luck and how luck is essentially just up like preparation meets opportunity.
Okay.
And if you do the first five principles of putting in those work and you're well prepared, then it's all about how do you create the new opportunity so that you can kind of appear as like that overnight success. Like we know that's not a real thing. Like nobody just happens to be
Right.
successful overnight. So it's like all that work and all that stuff you got to put in, but you can look like the overnight success if you follow the first five principles and then you follow the sixth principle about creating new opportunity.
Nice. Nice. All right. I mentioned to you at the beginning of the show there was something that stuck out to me. I really wanted to ask you about, and that was the power of intentional consumption. I just wanted to hear what you had to say about that and where you apply that in your program and in your life.
Yeah, so going back to like early sports days, like paying attention to what I'm eating, what I'm consuming,
Mhm.
nutrition's important because we are what we eat. So we want to make sure that we're eating well, but you can't eat like dialed in 100% of the time. There was a time period where I was um, getting super lean for vacations and basically getting to like magazine cover model status, and it's unsustainable. Like you can't eat that super clean in a deficit forever. Like it's good to get down and get to the point where you want to be, but then it's time to change when the season does change. When you're in the off season, you eat a little bit differently, and understanding that you can enjoy all you can eat sushi or going to pizza places and just knowing and being conscious of the season you're in and having that dictate how you consume. And the same, like I said, with the digital nutrition too. There are time periods where you're going to want to actually just hang out and binge Netflix and spend some time with the family watching junk TV or whatever it may be. But there are other times when you're gearing up for a sprint season or you're gearing up for a big project, and you need to listen to a lot more motivational stuff, and you really can't spend a lot of time scrolling on social media. You need to be listening to episodes of podcasts that you love that inspire you, or books that remind you of the things that you need to be doing, and the things that can maybe jog new ideas to kind of set yourself up for that sprint season. And I think when you have that intentional component to what you're consuming, makes a huge difference on the results that you get from the different seasons that you're in.
Nice. All right. I love the idea. I love the concept altogether. So it's not just what you're eating, it's what you're consuming all the way around in all ways. That's
Yeah.
interesting. All right, brother. The podcast. Obviously, want to talk about the podcast. We got a few podcasters who are listening to this show, so I got to ask you about that. But how does the podcast work with the rest of the business?
Yeah, so the speaking career is really where it kind of got started. And
Okay.
being a leader on a lot of my sports teams, it was always, I don't want to say easy, but I had experience at least speaking in front of crowds. And then as a strength and conditioning coach in front of a lot of different sports teams, being able to project and being able to just communicate, I guess, in front of a lot of people. So when I made the transition into more of like the personal development, momentum coaching, I wanted to get around more individuals. And my mentor said, just start speaking, getting on stages, honing your craft, understanding the different experiences that you've had and relating it to a lot of the things that you're teaching. And he challenged me to go out and um, speak on 12 stages and speak on 50 podcasts before the end of the year. And I was like, all right, well, that's a pretty challenging goal, especially considering it was August at the time that he had challenged me. So I was like, all right, well, how do I figure this out?
Nice. I like
And
that. All right.
it was I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I was like, okay, I was just like asking anybody and everybody, like, who's got a podcast? Would you like to have me on? And then as I was kind of going through that process, I was like, all right, well, if I want to get better at this, and if I'm listening to my own principles about creating more opportunities, one of the components is collaborating often. And instead of me just going out asking, take, I was like, well, why don't I just create a show for myself where I can bring on other guests? They can highlight themselves, sharing their story, their struggles, and their secrets to high performance, provide the guests with a bunch of free content that they can share on their social medias, highlighting their expertise. And then I get to learn all their tips and tricks and then hopefully relate it back to my business. And then when my podcast started rolling, I was like, this is super fun. Now I can use this as networking, connecting, inviting other guests on my show and vice versa. And that's really where it started to kind of snowball, connect with more people, and people were sharing me with other people. And then the podcasting community is incredible. And I'd go to different conferences and connecting with other awesome individuals and realizing how excited I am to hear other individual stories and what they're going through. And now I love it. Podcasting is so great. It becomes like a lead gen. It becomes a content source. It becomes so many things, and I think it's just going to continue to grow and evolve. And like I imagine, like yourself, I've been listening to podcasts for a while, many
Oh yeah.
years, and I've always wanted to kind of get into it, but thankfully now with technology and the ease of a lot of things, it's made lowered that barrier of entry, and I think it's going to just continue to grow.
Nice, nice. A lot of folks who want to get into speaking skip the podcasting step. They don't understand that podcasting not only gets you talking out loud, it gets you rehearsing your story, but it also is an absolute demo tape for when you decide to speak. You can do a standing on video podcast session and you're literally speaking. It's an audition tape, and people just don't quite get that. So it seems like you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's practice, and you're in front of people, whether it is live or if it's pre-recorded or you're still in front of somebody else. Even if you're not interviewed or getting interviewed with somebody else, even just you're doing it yourself, like a solo episode, and still putting it out onto social media. That's building the courage and the confidence to put your material out to the world and just being open to feedback. There's always going to be somebody who might comment saying something silly about what you said or whatever, but
Right.
that's good because you're going to learn, and at the very least toughening your skin up for future things, but more chances than not, you're going to get a lot of creative or positive feedback on how to continue to grow and do better yourself. And that's really what I think separates individuals from who are looking to kind of get better and just looking to kind of be heard. When you're actually looking to get better, you do look for more of that feedback. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so important to hire a coach because they give you another perspective and they can kind of guide you, but also listening to your audiences and listening to what people are saying about the different things that you're doing. And then actually applying some of that stuff and adding that to it instead of just looking for the attention, looking for the likes.
Yeah, no, listen, I love it. And I can tell that you've worked with a coach, you know what I mean? Just because of the way you're talking about some of the stuff. I'm a coach for podcasters also. And so I hear a lot of this and I hear a lot of folks talk on the stuff. And I think that's one of just some of the most overlooked stuff is what you just said right there. Because it is about getting out there. It is about embracing the hate. You know, I mean, you're going to get some. You know, when you're a in shape, good looking guy, you're going to get hate. That just end of story. It's going to come. It doesn't even matter what is coming out of your mouth. But when you start talking, they're like, oh, well, he's multifaceted. Okay. And now they're really going to come at you because they're really mad at you now. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I totally get it. But it's awesome that you've been building that up and you've been working on that. I mean, you're moving towards your next steps. Is the next area, I mean, continue the podcast and get on more stages? Is that kind of the goal?
That is, yeah, it's always going to be kind of a goal to kind of continue to grow and evolve. And as I host more workshops and facilitate other workshops from some of my buddies and things, it's just kind of growing and for myself as I continue to develop as an individual, so too does my coaching grow and get better. And I feel like it's a lot of the sharing of the experiences and connecting and providing platforms for new people to kind of come and grow and develop, not only to just learn, but also to then kind of step up their businesses and share their information and sharing their stories. So for me, yeah, it's kind of just continuing to scale up and outward in multiple directions.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, I wish you the best with all that. Sounds like a pretty solid program you got there. In terms of the podcast itself, you have over 100 episodes on there, so you already passed a bunch of the milestones in podcasting. Um, the it sounds like all of your episodes are interviews at this point. Did you do solo episodes? I mean, I looked through it, but I'm sure I didn't see every single episode. But it looked like most of them were interviews.
Yeah, so I had released the very first episode was just kind of like an introduction of what people might
Right.
be able to expect, and then the next 99 episodes were all interviews, and I
Cool.
didn't I didn't want any repeat guests because I wanted to just kind of connect and share more people. But once I hit 100, I had brought back some of my first few guests to kind of like check in and see where they're at now, how have things changed over the year or two. Because I think I've been podcasting now for almost 2.5 years, releasing one episode a week. And as it's continuing to grow and I'm getting connected with more people, I'm now launching solo episodes. They're just releasing this week actually, where I'm now taking a lot of the information that I've got from the previous guests of the week and then sharing the key takeaways and how I would implement some of those into my own life and some of my clients' lives and how using the information from the interview in actual practical applications.
Excellent. And you're doing Um, goodness gracious. The guests that you're bringing on, man, whew, been a long day, brother. The guests that you bring on, these are all people who have something to do with kind of like your six pillars in some way. Is that correct? I mean, I was looking at a lot of the guests you had on there. I was kind of identifying what their skill set was. Seemed like it lined up with one of these, you know, uh, core principles that you have.
Yeah, typically each guest is going to have one area where they're stronger for one principle, but they also might have the an area where they might be lacking, I guess. And then that's usually where some of their struggles kind of comes into or their challenges that they've gone through. So it's great because every episode we do touch base on how one of the guests really excels in one of the principles, and then also kind of shows on where they've either brought back up one of their lacking principles or maybe transitioning into new areas. Because I don't, it's impossible really to be maxed out on all six of the principles. You can't be doing everything all at once just
Right.
because we're human. So
Sure.
like sometimes you're going to be challenging yourself a little bit more and you're going to be really pushing, you're going to be dialed in with a lot of things that you're consuming. You're going to be optimized and super efficient, but then you might be lacking like your social corner because you're too busy working and growing and challenging yourself that maybe you're lacking a little bit at home or with your friends or whatever it may be. And so it's always going to be kind of evolving and growing and looking ways of balancing things out. And yeah, the episodes are great because we get to relate to other individuals, and it's not just entrepreneurs though. It's individuals with small side hustles. Like I had somebody who's loves their job and they're super content with it, but they really also love writing. So they're working on their books and bringing them on. It was like, okay, well, your how do you balance being able to find time for that with your job and family and all this other stuff? And then another individual I had on who was scaling their business up to the point where they're now in 10 states and they're getting close to 300 employees. And how do they continue to grow and balance life, and how do they make sure that they're still getting better themselves and challenging themselves with these new projects? And it's really cool. It's really exciting.
Nice, man. Nice. Nice. I love what you're doing with it. How do you go about promoting the podcast? And do you promote the podcast separately, or is it promoting the business? Do you do it together? How does that work in your world of promoting your business?
Yeah, so obviously word of mouth, constantly always telling everybody about it and sharing links, and social media is a huge place too. Every episode is great, video and audio. So pulling things off, transcribing the conversations, creating quotes and graphics for the guests and myself, and uh, like highlight clips from our conversations for reels and TikToks and YouTube shorts, and making sure that you're just spreading those out. The blog, newsletter, sharing with other people's blogs and their newsletters, and hosting events too. For my podcast launch party, I got like 50 people together into a room, which made it pretty easy in the beginning. I had everybody scan a QR code and leave a review as soon as they got in. And one of my buddies told me that most podcasters struggle to get past episode 7. So I made sure that I recorded 10 episodes before I launched the podcast. And I was like, perfect, first milestone done. And then just got everybody together and asking everyone to share. And then also for the 100th episode, I got a bunch of people together again. I did a live interview for 3 guests and having them kind of share it out, spread it, and then, just pizza and some drinks and stuff to celebrate afterwards. So live events, newsletter, social media, word of mouth, all of those great ways of promotion.
That's really cool. Well, I love that you're doing the events along with it. That's neat. That's really,
Thanks.
really neat. Have you found one in the social media area? Have you found that one platform is better than another for you, or maybe is there one that just has absolutely not worked for you?
I would say one that has absolutely not worked, um, or hasn't worked, I guess, is just TikTok because I haven't actually committed to going on to TikTok yet. But I think LinkedIn is probably where I should be honing in most of my time. Maybe it's just stubbornness, or maybe I just like Instagram, but so that's where I'm hanging out the most. And as I'm optimizing the newer systems and creating more content for every episode, I think I'm producing 15 pieces of content. And just now that I've got it pretty much systematized for Instagram, now I'm also releasing things into LinkedIn and on Facebook and kind of branching those things out. So as I'm kind of going, I'm probably going to be moving myself more towards LinkedIn. But in the past 30 days, I've 300, or it's just shy of 300. It was like 297% increase in my views and accounts reached on just Instagram alone in the last 30 days. So the system that I've kind of been now implementing and putting out has been working. And it's great when you see the results because the work's dialed in and it makes sense. So now as I continue to branch, like I said, I'm looking hopefully to see some of the similar results for LinkedIn as well.
Nice, nice. Now, I know that you have the course and you've got the supplements, so you've definitely monetized certain areas of your business with the podcast. Have you had a chance to monetize that, or have you even looked into it yet?
Not necessarily. There's some software things that I use kind of pay a little bit of the commissions and such, but for myself, not directly monetizing the podcast. So for on my show, I have my two ad spaces and I use them for myself. I using one of the ad spaces as a reminder for individuals to go and check out the free assessment that I have that kind of hones in and really helps you identify your personality as a side hustler and show you maybe which principle do you need to spend a little more time or focusing on to kind of bring back up and how that assessment can be a tool for you to kind of check in with yourself during different seasons so you can kind of monitor how you're evolving and growing as an individual. And then the other one I use as an opportunity for any of the listeners to chime in if they feel like they're stuck or if they're struggling to create momentum with a certain project. I just tell them to reach out to me and we can book a free call to kind of figure out a way that we can get it moving to the next way, or at least setting a game plan for them to kind of get unlocked and get to that next stage. So not directly monetizing, but people do reach out and they are seeing a lot more of the reach on social media. So there are a couple smaller brands that have been now reaching out for content, kind of influencer type things. And it's crazy because I always thought that you need to have like thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. But just as myself and my personal brand, I have a relatively small amount of followers, but a lot of people are contacting me for small contracts and small things. And I think it's cool because if it's something or a product that you do use or something that you find useful, it's exciting.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Well, hey, maybe that's next for you. Who knows?
Yeah.
When you're writing your book, I mean, you got all the other legs of the business. Where's the book?
The so the book's essentially written. So
Oh, I knew it.
I have like a 250 page book already done. Um, but I'm still working a lot of the other systems up and before I go through the whole launch phase, I have a plan that I want to kind of follow through with that. So once I have everything kind of well oiled and set up, and then I'm going to go back in and I got to edit the book because some of the stories change a little bit. I might want to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but once the systems are in place and I'm ready to roll, then it's just finish or clean up the book, I guess I should say, and then actually get it edited by somebody and then hit the runway with it.
Awesome. Awesome. I knew it. I was like, this guy's got every other thing pegged. He's got a plan. I could see you following it like, right there, step by step. Got to have a book. And he's like, oh yeah, I wrote it already. It's just sitting over here.
Yeah.
It's on the end table. I'll get to it when I get to it. No, that's absolutely fantastic, man. Back to the podcast. Do you use, and if you do, how do you use AI in what you do with the podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, I use it a lot. I don't, to be honest, I'm not even sure where I use it, I guess. So for one, with like editing tools and stuff, I use this software that basically cuts the social media clips for me. They find good areas, social media worthy, I guess, conversation in the transcript, and then they kind of cut the clips around that. Makes it super easy. Show notes, the show descriptions, like social media captions, even, and just a lot of different things, helping me with how to create different graphics on Canva and such. It's like, oh, here, do that, do this, and like, oh, you should be using this, and then for the automation too, I have an automation software that I use for different things, and how do you how do I set these things up? What do I need to do to make this thing work after that? If somebody does do something or they do click on a lead magnet, how do I make sure that it goes here? And how do I connect it with the podcast page and all this other stuff? So it's essentially like everywhere. I guess I should do a little audit myself and see like, okay, well, how much am I actually relying on AI?
Yeah, no, I love asking that question because I get that kind of idea and that look on somebody's face is like, wow, actually, I'm using it a lot now that I'm talking about it. You're not alone, man. I mean, it just sort of has infiltrated almost every step of what we're doing. So sometimes you're using it, you don't even really realize you're doing it, and it's like, yeah, it's everywhere. So
Yeah.
you're not alone. But let me throw my corny question in here that I try to ask everybody. When it comes to doing your podcast, what is it about doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you just absolutely throw out the window, hate the most?
Yeah. So what I love the most, I think is I think it's the connection and really getting to hear everyone's stories and kind of sharing stories. And over the past, I'd say probably 15 months. So probably close to the past 2 years, I've really honed in on understanding how to connect with people more. And I work with this one organization, and we teach a lot of conflict resolution and influence tactics and things like that. And the owner, the founder of the company is also one of my mentors, and he's big on it. And he's really good at connecting and just communicating. And that's inspired me to kind of dive in. And recently reading books like Everyone Communicates, Few Connect by John Maxwell. And I was like, oh, this is like a gold mine. This is how like you make better friends. This is how you like have better connections and stuff. So I think that's the component of it. Looking at every conversation with curiosity and excitement to kind of learn and and just yeah, just like developing relationships, I think is my favorite part about it.
Nice.
Least favorite part though is definitely like the editing, content creation. Thankfully with AI it makes it so much easier, but now that I'm up to like 15 pieces of content per episode, it's a lot of like, okay, dragging this over here, moving that there, doing this, doing that, and doing this, which is great because that's easily delegatable. I just need to record myself doing it and then actually turning it into a process so that I can pass that off to somebody else.
Right.
That's probably my next stage, as like I was mentioning with the whole LinkedIn and kind of getting everything else rolling.
Nice. Nice. And that's, yeah, back to scaling again
Yeah.
instead of growing. So 100%. Totally understand. All right. When you think about your podcast, and I got to listen to quite a bit of it, you've had some very interesting people on there. We've had a few of the similar guests on there. But when you think about it, best and worst, and you don't have to give names, but just best and worst. Best episode you feel like you had, and man, worst episode you feel like you had.
Yeah. So my best episode
And no
would pro
names. We don't want,
yeah.
I don't want you to
Well,
get in
so
trouble.
my best episode is probably at least the one that I mo had the most fun with, I would say, is probably the 100th episode, just because I got to bring back three previous guests, kind of check in, see what they're doing. It was a live recording. There's live audience. It was so much fun, and each guest kind of brought a different component to it. So the first guest was like super vulnerable and bringing us down. The second one was inspiring and provided some good action and motivation, and then the final one was just brought the inspiration even more so. And it was just, there's a lot of emotion. There was a lot of takeaways. I just felt like it was such a great episode. And the worst episode, I had somebody come on, and this was like probably still getting used to the whole process and understanding conversation, I guess. And I didn't want to cut the guy off at all. And when they came on, they just talked. And I told them, hey, we record typically for 45 minutes. I've got a hard stop. I said the intro, and then I didn't speak for 52 minutes. And I was like, at a point, I was just sitting there. I'm like, okay, this is getting comical now. And then I had to cut him off abruptly and being like, hey, I got to go. This was awesome. I really appreciate you sharing this, but I can't let you finish the story. We got to move on. And it was like mind boggling to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I probably shouldn't have aired that episode, but I did. And it was tough.
Ouch. That was my next question was, and did you air
Yeah.
it? So,
Yeah.
have you ever had one that was so bad you couldn't air it?
Yes, but it was just because my guest was kind of rude. Um,
Really?
yeah,
What in the
like
world, man?
because I try to keep it very conversational, very human. So I'm like, okay, if you misspeak and there's a ton of disfluencies, that's fine. Just kind of keep going. We're all human. I keep the editing to a minimum. But he like got up and like answered a phone call mid-conversation while we're recording. And then another time he like went to go answer the door for like food or something. And I'm like, dude, and this is like actually one of my friends. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, no, like maybe we'll record again in the future, but I haven't set that recording link out to him yet.
Wow. Wow. I mean, wow. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. I really do. That's why we ask some of these questions. So, interesting stuff. I love what you're doing. And you seem to have the podcast very well dialed into the rest of the business plan. You feel like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing for the rest of the business?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do. And as I continue to get better with it, like we just revamped the intros, added some more music and changed some things around. And I think as I continue to get better with it, I think it's going to continue to get better. And I think that's doing exactly what it needs to be doing for my business. It's connecting me with people. We're collaborating. We're sharing stories and experiences, and it's creating content and providing promotional material and all this stuff. So I love it, and I find it like perfectly aligned with what I'm doing with my business.
That's great. It seems like it is. I mean, from the outside looking in, it seems like you really have everything pegged and it's all right where it's supposed to be. So congrats on all of that. Love to see it. And now I've got one more question before we hit that. Let's make sure everybody knows how to reach you, how to look into your stuff, how to find your course, your supplements, all that.
Yeah, like we kind of said earlier, the most often place I'm hanging out is Instagram, but then LinkedIn and Facebook. So social media is easy and to find me is just searching my name. It's my handle on all the platforms. And also over at my website, which is also just my name, and there's a lot of material on there. There's the supplements are there, the speaking videos, if interested in hiring me to come and speak or teaching workshops and such is all there on the website. But and also survivingthesidehustle.com. If interested in the show, if interested in guesting on the show, going over there and just checking that out. And really just social media. If you have any questions or if you have feedback for me on the episode, if there's anything that you really enjoyed hearing me say or you've really disliked hearing me say, I really just appreciate the feedback either way. So don't be afraid to share what you liked and disliked. And social media is probably the fastest way to communicate with me.
Perfect. All right. We'll have all those links in the show notes too, that you mentioned, website and whatnot. As we kind of wrap this up and bring it to a close, let me ask you what I normally do for my final question, which is, um, what's your best piece of advice for podcasters who are not quite where you are yet?
I think the most valuable piece of advice would be to ask yourself why you're doing the podcast. Because I think that is going to dictate and determine what you need to be doing or directing your focus. If you're just doing it to create something to have fun with friends, then a lot of the systems and behind the scenes things like setting up lead magnets and other things, it's not as big of a priority. But if you're looking to monetize it, then you do need to make sure you have the systems and softwares in place and the editing and things like that. So I think the most important thing is understanding why you're doing it and who is it for would be my best piece of advice.
Nice, man. I appreciate that. All right. Um, Founder of Prime Performance Coaching Program, host of Surviving the Side Hustle, Rob Tracz. Rob, thank you, man, for coming on, telling everything, telling everybody all about your business and sharing what you've been doing behind the scenes. And, again, man, I just think everything you're doing is obviously inspired and it looks like you put a ton of work into it. And I'm looking forward to the book. So when the book comes out, you got to come back.
Of course.
All
And
right.
Roy, thank you so much too for giving me the platform, giving me the time to kind of share and being curious and excited to have me on too. It's really rewarding to feel someone else is excited to have other guests on. And I've been on plenty of shows where they're just kind of like checking the box, like, okay, cool, and not really feeling into it. So it's refreshing to kind of have a conversation with somebody who cares a lot about their show and what they're doing as well. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That means a lot. That really does. And the best compliment I can get is something like that, and I hope you had a good time. So, all right. All right, folks. Another fantastic episode of the Podcaster Nation. The reason we get such powerful podcasters on here on this show is because this is the show that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters and it's done by podcasters. And folks, we showed you again today. This is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.